Hello Internet, Seth Skorkowski, and today we're going to be taking a look at the tabletop role-playing game Hollow Earth Expedition. Published by Exile Game Studio, Hollow Earth Expedition, or HEX as the cool kids call it, is a pulpy adventure game set in the 1930s. It's an age of airships and the silver screen, a time when evil fascists rose to power, a time of daring exploration, a world of science and weird science. It's a holy crap, could you be any more overdramatic with the lead-in here? Hey, I'm Jack the NPC, and let me tell you what this is about. Hollow Earth Expedition is a pulp game about riding Nazis and shooting dinosaurs. Wait, no, it's the other way around. It's about shooting Nazis and riding dinosaurs. But usually, you just shoot both the Nazis and the dinosaurs, which, by the way, are the two greatest things ever. Together, it's like chocolate and peanut butter. The setup is that the world is hollow, and inside are lost civilizations, magical artifacts, prehistoric and fantastical creatures, and yes, even Nazis who are trying to steal it all for themselves. It's a pulp game, which means it's in the spirit of Indiana Jones, The Mummy, Sky Captain and the World of Tomorrow, Journey to the Center of the Earth, both the new and the old one, Tales of the Golden Monkey, and the most recent Archer Danger Island. And if any of those appeal to you, then HEX might be right up your alley. The game uses the ubiquity system, which is very different than any system that I've ever used before. Essentially how that works is the characters have a dice pool for their stats and their skills, and whatever the number for that stat or the skill is represents how many dice they roll whenever they want to make a skill check or a stat check. And they just count the number of successes, with 2 successes being an average difficulty. So the player rolls their dice, which are all essentially D2, and if they make more successes than the difficulty, then they succeeded. Congratulations. But of course, there are a lot of modifiers that can alter their dice pool, and the number of successes they make or the number of failures that they miss the roll by has different degrees of results that can happen. So for the rolls, we just use regular D6, with evens being success and odds being the failure. So the players just rolled their handful of dice, counted the number of evens, so those were all the successes, and that's what we went by. Now, there are special ubiquity dice that are made, and they're really neat because depending on the color of the specific die, it could represent 1 die, 2 die, or 3 die. But everywhere that I've looked seems to be out of these specific ubiquity dice. I did find a couple that were for Space 1899, but these nice 3-colored ones here don't seem to be available right now, and hopefully they will be available again soon. The game itself is a skill-based system, which is my preferred type of role-playing game. Now, a lot of people don't know what that means, so let me explain. Dungeons & Dragons, for example, is a class-based or a level-based system, where you play a character who belongs to a specific class, like Barbarian or Sorceress, and as you play, you gain levels, and that way you become something like a 3rd-level Barbarian or a 5th-level Paladin. A skill-based system, like Hollow Earth Expedition, does not have classes at all. The player gets to choose the individual skills they want for their character, and each skill goes up individually as the player is getting experience points from playing that character. Instead of classes, a player chooses an archetype, such as Rugged Explorer, Intrepid Reporter, or Eccentric Film Director. But there is no limit as to what they can be. The player simply describes what sort of role they want their character to have, and then they build the character around that description, leaving it wide open, and imagination being the only limitation. I guess that or Game Master approval. Skill stats are determined by a pool. You have 6 stats and 15 points to assign among them, with 5 being your maximum that you can put in any one stat. Skills are done the same way. You get 15 points worth of skills and a huge list of potential skills to choose from. Now this is where players can get into some dangerous territory with skills. They might want to try to pump everything into a single skill, making them the best in the world at that one thing, but completely incompetent at everything else, what I refer to as a one-trick pony. Now, thankfully, the system does have a rule in place that caps starting skills at 5th level, so that way they can't pump all 15 into one skill. So that is a good thing. I do appreciate that. But then you have the flip side of that problem, where a player might choose to put 15 skills, only putting 1 point to each of them, which essentially makes them completely useless at absolutely everything, or what I refer to as painfully average. Now, there is no rule against a player doing that, but trust me, from experience, you don't want to do that. In my opinion, the sweet spot for this is 5 to 7 starting skills, 6 being ideal, just depending on the character. Now, a lot of players that aren't used to a skill-based system might find the total openness of it just a bit daunting and a bit overwhelming, trying to decide what skills to get and how to set up their character. But thankfully, the rulebook provides 12 example characters that can be used as inspiration, as templates, or just as pre-generated characters. These show a wide range of what can be played, and they're really just the tip of the iceberg as far as potential, and I love this about the game, and I love that they gave us so many to choose from and so many that we can look at, break apart, and analyze, and then be able to apply that to a character that we're making completely on our own. So Game Masters, I suggest that you start with these, and once you and your players get used to how the game works and how you want to run the game and how everything's going to go in it, you can then go, forward from there, learning from your tastes and expand and do any sort of character that you like. In addition to skills, each character gets a special talent, sort of a feat that allows them to bend the rules in some specific way. There is also a huge list of these, and as characters gain experience, they can purchase additional ones later on. So between the skills and the talents, you could have multiple players play similar characters, such as tomb raiding explorers, but they still be very different as far as what it is that they can do. Another thing that a player assigns their character is their motivation. What is their character's driving force? Is it faith? Is it love, power, revenge, redemption, knowledge, greed? What makes this character tick? And because no pulp heroes should be without their faults, we get a huge list of possible faults to give our characters. Whenever a player role-plays their motivation or their fault, they receive what's called a style point. Style points can be cashed in for additional dice, reduced damage, or other things like that, and I love this mechanic about it because it really encourages role-playing. This is far better to me than something like alignment, which a lot of players usually see alignment as more of a limitation. But here, the players get actively rewarded for playing their character both good and bad, and once again, it's a good incentive for them to play a character that isn't just themselves and just a bunch of stats on the page. And Game Masters, you got some players that don't always play the way you like them to? Well, try this one on. Have that greedy player use duty as their motivation, and have that normally bossy player use shy as their fault. And now you have an in-game method to reward them for playing differently than they normally do. Combat using the Ubiquity system is fairly simple at face value, and it uses opposed skills. So the attacker gets to roll their dice pool versus the target's defense dice pool. And if they get more successes than the defender does, that means they hit. And however many successes they get above what the defender does determines how many hit points of damage that causes. The difficulty with combat becomes once we get into combat maneuvers. There are a lot of special moves, and it can take some time to get used to them all, and there's no actual easy-to-read list that's included in the rulebook, which I find just a little bit annoying. However, if you do pick up one of the free quick start guides, there is a shortened list with some other tips that you can then print out and give to your players, and I really recommend that you do that when you're dealing with new players or when you as a game master are trying to get used to the system itself. However, I also have made my own cheat sheet that I've given to my players, and it's 2 full pages of helpful info for players to keep track of what they can and cannot do. I've also added links below for it if you would like that. Now, one area that I feel that could be improved is how hit points are tracked. Damage is denoted in 2 types, lethal and non-lethal, and they add together against the character's total hit points to determine where they are. And once they reach 0, they're going to be in trouble. And once they reach -5, it's going to be lights out. So on the character sheet, they have a large box for hit points. So let's say your character has 6 hit points. Well, you write 6 here. What I recommend you do is that you then draw 6 boxes, or however many boxes for hit points your specific character has. Then you draw a line. This line represents 0. Then you draw 5 circles. These are the hit points down from 0 to -5. If your character here then took a point of non-lethal damage, you put a slash in the first box. If they then took a point of lethal damage, you convert that slash to an X to denote that's a point of lethal now, and then you draw a slash in the next box is where you moved that non-lethal point over. This now represents that they've had 2 points of damage, one being lethal and the other being non-lethal. As they gain more damage, you put slashes and X's in the boxes, eventually circles once you get to the left of the little line. This is a nice, easy, and clear way to keep track of damage and see what type of damage it was that put the character below 0 and to determine if they're really dying or not. This method can really help players keep organized, and they're not trying to keep it all down as different notes and everything within the box. It's a nice, consistent way of doing it. That way everybody's doing it the same way. Now, this is just our house rule. You do not have to do it this way, but from my experience, it works great. We also get a good sampling of weapons and equipment, which I always love. I am a huge sucker for gear in games, and while there is a good amount of it, I would have liked to have had more. In addition to mundane gear, we also get some weird science items such as giant drilling machines, jetpacks, and steam-powered power armor with machine gun arms. Again, great list. I just wish there was more. Essentially, I would like to have seen twice as much weapons and gear as is presented in the main core book. Another area that doesn't feel all that fleshed out is psychic powers and magic. There is a little bit, but it doesn't feel all that complete to me. More of a teaser than anything, and that does disappoint me. Now, one area that does not disappoint me is the bestiary. Aside from fighting Nazis and prehistoric animals, we have a lot of obstacles to face inside the Hollow Earth. We get natives living down inside there. We also get deadly plants, giant insects, which are always fun. We get beastmen, such as mole men and lizard men, and we also get pirates. That's right, all those pirates who were lost in the Bermuda Triangle, well, they had to go somewhere, didn't they? And it makes it a lot like Neverland from Peter Pan, with these little different pirate communities that are set up along the shores of these tropical and fantastical lands. Now, one criticism that I do have is that this sweet 250-page hardback is no longer available. They're not making them anymore right now, which makes these books pretty rare, and they're currently priced like they're very rare. So instead of the hardbacks, we now get this 350-page trade paperback, which is a lot smaller, and I would have preferred it if they had actually made it the same size as the hardback, the same size as kind of a standard RPG book, but no one ever asks me these things before they do them. The problem with these smaller books is that the page numbers between them don't align. The PDF has the same numbering system that's in the hardback, which is great, but the hardback isn't available anymore. The PDF is available and the trade paperback size is available. But if one player is looking inside the PDF and another player is looking inside the paperback, one of them can't say, oh yeah, that rule you're looking for is on page 150, because it's not going to be on page 150 because the page numbers don't correspond at all. Once again, if they had made the paperbacks the same size as the hardback, that wouldn't be a problem. So it does become a bit confusing if everyone in your group is using a different book than someone else, because that way there's no consistency between them. So just to be clear, the hardback book, the really nice hardback Game Master screen, and the Ubiquity dice are currently not available. Exile Games is still around. I know that their owner had some problems that came up recently, so hopefully they'll be able to recover and keep putting out some quality products, because Hollow Earth Expedition is actually a great role-playing game despite these small issues that it has. Now, and speaking of products, there are other books which are currently available, such as Secrets of the Surface World, which is an awesome book. This goes into the regular outer world, which is really useful if you plan on playing anywhere outside of the Earth's dino-infested interior. This not only makes things like resources, money, and fame actually make sense because they're lacking in the core book, but things like money, who cares about money when you're just inside the Hollow Earth? What is there to buy? And fame? Who's even there to impress? But the Secrets of the Surface World book also greatly expands on all the other stuff that we've said was lacking. We get more equipment, more weapons, more weird science. We get psychic powers and magic expanded and explained. We also get several new skills, new archetypes, new flaws, and new example characters. So this add-on book is really worth the money to you. So if you have any intention on playing a Hollow Earth Expedition campaign outside of just the Hollow Earth, then I would consider that this book is an essential add-on. So yeah, basically you need 2 books to run a solid Hollow Earth campaign. Get it? Solid, hollow? Anyway, one book is going to cover the outside world and the other book is going to cover the inside world. But both game masters and players can use either one of them. There's no secret squirrel game master only sort of book. Now, if you don't want to commit yourself to purchasing 2 books in order to play this game, you don't have to. You can just pick up the regular Hollow Earth Expedition book, play some games, have some fun, shoot some Nazis, and if you like it and you want to keep going, then yeah, definitely pick up Secrets of the Surface World, but you don't have to have both of them. I mean, you could play for years and be perfectly happy only playing the Hollow Earth Expedition core book, unlike some other games I could mention that require you pick up 3 books just in order to play them. There are some other add-on books that are available, one expanding on the inner world and another one that's an adventure collection. I haven't read them yet, so I can't comment on them one way or the other. Reviews are good so far, but really I haven't found them necessary yet. There's also several free scenarios that you can play, starting with one that's in the main core rulebook, which I really appreciate them putting a free adventure inside the main rulebook to help people get a good idea of how this game should play out, and I really appreciate it, and I will be reviewing that adventure sometime soon. But you can also download for completely free several introductory scenarios from the Quick Start Rules on Exile Game Studio's website. So you can try these adventures out, look over the Quick Start Rules, see how these adventures play out, see if you like the system, and then write your own adventures from there. Overall, despite my criticism, Hollow Earth Expedition is a really fun game and a really cool system. Like with most RPGs, it does take a bit of a learning curve in order to get used to it, but it's actually pretty easy to get the hang of in order to play and go forward from there and have fun. So, if you are in the mood for some good pulpy adventure fighting dinosaurs, pirates, and Nazis, I suggest that you give Hex a look. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. If you want to see some of our other videos, such as game reviews or RPG philosophy, just hit that subscribe button. But till next time, heroes, you have a great day. Did you ever hear that legend that President John Quincy Adams once tried to fund an expedition to the poles so he could reach the Hollow Earth and we could trade with the mole men? I'm serious, man. It's on the internet, so it's got to be true.